So I am just leaving now to go into Sydney CBD to join a protest, and this is the first protest I've ever been to, and the reason I'm going is because our country is being run by a pack of dickheads who have just completely mishandled this huge national crisis with the fires, and our Prime Minister he should just be ashamed of himself, and he should resign. He won't, but he should. But also to protest that we actually need to really start listening to scientists and take more action with climate change. So let's see how this goes. I understand how a democracy works. I understand that laws have to pass through the lower house and then the upper house, and all of that takes time. I get that. But our government really could have done so much more and can still do so much more than it's doing in the face of this national crisis, which has just seen fires sweep our nation and just completely destroy our wildlife populations. It is just heartbreaking to see the photos of dead animals across charred lands. It is just horrific, and the fact that it has been managed the way that it has been managed is just rage-inducing. Our Prime Minister Scott Morrison has wandered off on holidays to Hawaii in the middle of this, and to be honest, if he resigns he can bugger off back to Hawaii, I don't care. But the idea that he has given press conferences where he's talked about how every fire season we learn something new and we manage it better each year, and we've been managing it better each year. You haven't been fucking managing it better, mate. Like, the whole fucking country is on fire. We've had moments where the firefighters have had to pay to fill the petrol tanks or the gas tank of the huge fire tankers on their own credit cards because there's not enough money on their government funded cards. They've had to buy their own supplies and masks and radios so that they can be in communication with each other because the government isn't providing them with enough resources. These firefighters, most of them are volunteers. They have either given up their day jobs or given up the ability to go and search for jobs and go for interviews, which means that they are no longer entitled to Centrelink payments, which is kind of a little bit like a government-supported small income, because they're out fighting the fires, and people are saying you need to pay the fireys and you need to give them money and you need to give them resources. And Scott Morrison has turned around and said, well, they want to be out there. Like, what the fuck, mate? They're out there because shit's on fire and someone's got to do something. People have asked him to deploy the ADF, the Australian Defence Force, and we've been asking for that for weeks, and he just has not done anything. And if he couldn't deploy them, he should have explained why. If he couldn't do the things that people wanted him to do, he should have explained why. And he didn't. He just kind of went, we're not doing it. When he did finally deploy the ADF, it was up to 3,000 troops. And what he failed to explain was part of those people that were deployed were the volunteer firefighters and the RFS that have already been working for months. And those guys are exhausted. We've had firefighters come from Canada, recently the United States. New Zealand have been sending firefighters on a rotation because the smoke is so bad that it has now made the snowfields in, well, what's left of the snowfields in New Zealand go brown. Like, we are affecting other countries' air quality massively because of how big these bushfires are. But recently, someone in the Morrison government thought it would be a great idea to turn down help from Danish firefighters who said, okay, we may be not used to fighting fires like this, but we are happy to help in any way we can. Travel water back and forth to wherever you need it. We can support troops. We can clear out the bush. We can do whatever you need us to do. And some moron declined that help. Like, mate, we need all the help we can get. They only deployed the ADF forces on New Year's Eve when shit got so real that people in Malakuta were holding on to their children while they submerged themselves in the water and were holding on to the jetties while the skies were red. Like, what? Then you get to the issues with our Prime Minister on a personal level. This guy has walked up to people and offered to shake their hands. They have declined to shake his hand, and he has grabbed it anyway and shaken it so he can have his photo op with these people and firefighters who are already distressed, and he non-consensually grabs their hand for a photo op. It's just rage-inducing. And then when a young pregnant woman asked him for help, she wasn't screaming, she wasn't irate, although she would have had every right to be. She just said, we need more help, please help us. He turned his back and walked away. So our PM has become literally the guy who turns his back and walks away when you ask for help. Scott Morrison won't resign. To see what he's done wrong in this situation, he'd actually have to have the ability to feel empathy. He'd have to have some insight, and he'd have to actually listen to people when they're talking, and he doesn't have any of those skills or abilities. It's just quite horrific what leadership we're stuck with. Australia is in the grips of a national crisis. The enormity of the effect of these fires and the size of these fires is something we have never ever seen before. Our wildlife is just being decimated. There is barely going to be any bush left. What Australians need to do is we need to, yes, continue to talk about this issue. Yes, continue to talk about climate change. Bring it up in discussions on social media. Absolutely bring it up with your friends. But you have to contact your local member. If you don't know who your local member is, I will put a link below. But if you do not contact your local member and demand that they log your official support for stricter climate change laws or for more action in climate change and to increase the financial support of our RFS guys, then your local MP can continue to ignore your voice. It is not enough to get on social media and to slay these guys. It is not enough to send Scott Morrison tweets to tell him that he's an idiot, because clearly he doesn't know that, and if he doesn't know that by now, he's never going to learn that. If you want a great template for a letter to write to your local MP that goes through all the issues, and all you really have to do is fill in your MP's details and your own personal details and send it in or drop it in, then check out at AnnaRose_Richards on Instagram, or you can check her out on Facebook. She has written a fantastic letter. She actually worked in Canberra for a while, so she's used to dealing with the politicians. She worked in somebody's office. And it's a great letter, and really all you have to do is put in your MP's details and your own details, print it, sign it, and drop it in. It couldn't be easier, and the letter is extremely clear. So I will also link that below in the description. But if you're an Australian, you have to contact your local member. If you're calling them, you need to call them continuously. Most of them are on holidays at the moment, so it is better to actually write a letter and send it to them or drop it into their offices when they reopen. You have to lodge your support for climate change for our firefighters, and if you do not do this, they will ignore your voice. So demand that your voice be heard. It is not enough to go to protest. It is not enough to get on social media, although these things are all really helpful as well. It's no good bitching about it if you're not going to put your money where your mouth is. Get out there, protest, complain to your local members, make yourself a pest to your local member, make sure they know how you feel about what's happening to our country, make sure they know how you feel about climate change. Make sure you do this and try and help support our firefighters any way you can. Contact your local fireys, find out if they need donations, whether it be financial or food or supplies like eye drops so that they can flush out their eyes when they're out on the field. Make sure you are donating what you can to people who've had their homes and their lives destroyed by these fires. Over 2,000 houses have been burnt in these fires, which is just terrifying, and it could have been so much more without our amazing RFS guys. Make sure if you donate money that you have a look at exactly where that money is going to support our wildlife. Keep an eye out for any injured wildlife and take them to nearby help centers and zoos. If you find any injured wildlife, make sure if you're at home you put out water for any animals that might be dehydrated and change it regularly. Include sticks or rocks in that water so that the animals can get out if they fall into the water. Put your money where your mouth is, literally, as a consumer, and reduce your consumption of plastics, reduce your consumption of meat and dairy, and increase your plant-based diet meals. Even if you only change to one plant-based meal per day, it will still make a difference to our environment. Make sure you start learning as much as you can about things that might help our environment. But most importantly, have discussions about climate change, have discussions about what you would like to see our policymakers do, and tell them. Tell them in writing. And if you're watching this and you're thinking that climate change is not real, and your opinion is that people are really getting up in arms about something that is just a natural evolution of Australia's landscape and weather patterns, that's fine, you're entitled to your opinion. But my point is, if you don't think climate change is real, why can't you just see that things could be better? Why can't you see that it would be great for us to clean up some of the mess that we've created, clean up some of the crap that we've put into the oceans? There is absolutely no reason why we should not be doing more than we are. There is no reason why we should not be making things better than they are. We have technology to make things better. We have science to support the fact that we need to do something. Even if you don't believe that climate change is real, surely you can understand that we can do better.